Hello. Today we're going to look at one of the A-list themes from Shakespeare's fantastic tragedy, Macbeth. Now this is a theme that shares the podium, as it were, with key themes like supernatural, the key theme of power or ambition. I'm talking, of course, about the theme of appearance versus reality, otherwise known as the theme of perception or the theme of deception. Basically the idea that what you see is at odds with the way things really are. Now, the theme of appearance versus reality was brought home to me with depressing clarity one evening about 20 years ago. I'm running a comb through my hair, practically kissing the reflection in the mirror. My mate bobs up, puts an almost fatherly arm around my shoulder and says to me, "Johnny boy, you can't polish poop. You can't polish poop." And therein you had the disparity or the difference between what appeared to me in the mirror and the reality that everyone else saw. I still say you're all wrong, but what can you do? And in my usual rough and ready style, what I'm going to do is explore a few incidents, a few characters from the play that relate to this key theme, appearance versus reality, and then we'll cobble together some model paragraphs, the like of which will have an examiner purring with delight like a kitten by the fireside. So here's our first point. In Act 1, Lady Macbeth advises Macbeth to deceive people of his murderous intentions. And as you might very well have worked out on the back of my oh so hilarious cartoon, the quotation we're going to use to support this idea is Lady Macbeth's advice to her husband: "Look the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Look the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it." Now what this means on a basic level, of course, is that Macbeth needs to put up a facade or a mask to conceal the evil that burbles away at his core, this urge to commit regicide and kill the king. But we can hammer out a contextual link here, much beloved by examiners, because we can link this line to the era when the play was written. For Shakespeare's original audience, that reference to the serpent would have had a biblical allusion. It would have referred to the Bible, specifically the episode where Eve is coerced into eating an apple in the Garden of Eden by the devil, or Satan, disguised as a serpent. And by juxtaposing or linking Macbeth's behaviour to the workings of Satan, what you're doing there, or what Shakespeare is doing there, is emphasising the depravity of that endeavour to commit regicide. You're highlighting, screaming from the rooftops, the extent of this man's evil. I say this man, of course, you can level the same accusation at Lady Macbeth, can't you? Another episode from the play, which links back to that theme of appearance versus reality, or deception, is in Act 4, when the witches give very vague or ambiguous promises to Macbeth. You've got to remember with the witches that there's a slippery duality to their promises. Meaning is fluid, not fixed. And this facilitates or fosters confusion. You'll recall that the witches say to Macbeth that no man of woman born can hurt him. And of course our lad is delighted with this promise, isn't he? From his perspective, from his perception, it appears to be an assurance of invincibility. He can go toe to toe with anyone in battle, nobody is bringing him down. We learn in Act 5, of course, that the seductive appearance of this promise is at painful odds with the reality of the situation, because Macduff, technically, is not of woman born. I think the phrase is, he says to Macbeth, "I was from my mother's womb untimely ripped." In other words, he was born of caesarean or C-section. And of course, the net result of this incident from infancy is that Macduff is one of the few people who can go toe to toe with Macbeth and walk away the victor, which he promptly does, doesn't he? He kills him, then hacks off his head, just for good measure. Deception then, or failing to perceive the disparity, the difference between appearance and reality, can have fatal consequences in this play. To be honest, folks, I'm probably trying to be a bit of a clever Trevor with this next one, but I guarantee it will play very well with an examiner. Do you remember the porter, that grubby pervert from Act 2, who introduces some much needed comic relief with his crude humour after the tension surrounding the death of Duncan? Well, this guy too can be linked to that key theme of appearance versus reality. He appears to be a character created, as I've said, to produce humour. Evidence? Well, let's learn a bit of proof to back up this bold assertion. He keeps making these jokes that relate to penises or erections. He talks about a man standing to, having an erection, and not standing to, losing an erection. Now, as it said in the previous slide, the technical term for these kind of willy jokes is sexual innuendo. Because trust me, you don't want to be too crude to the examiner. The guy's got all the levity, the lightheartedness of a hungry pit bull. You want to be PG certificate when you're describing body parts. I'm sure in the pub, he's honking like a sea lion at blue crude humour, but that doesn't carry over to his day job. So don't refer to it as willy jokes, or God forbid anything worse than that. Call it sexual innuendo. And keep that examiner on side. And here we have the really clever part, because we can say that in reality, the porter has a serious function. He's pretending, as you know, to let people into hell. And he mentions that one of these people is a farmer who hung himself on expectation of plenty. There's our quote, a farmer who hung himself on expectation of plenty. Well, that's bad news for the farmer, you might say, Mr. Taylor. How is this good news for us? How can we turn this into a winning pearl to dazzle an examiner? And here's our top spec explanation, because the farmer reference foreshadows Lady Macbeth's own suicide in Act 5. She takes her life because the guilt-riddled reality of being an illegitimate queen, of having killed off the natural king in this brutal act of regicide, doing this did not produce what she expected. Life did not live up to expectation. And just to clarify, foreshadow is just a highfalutin fancy-dan term for saying something that gives a hint or clue to events that are going to occur later in a text. Now, of course, any key theme in Macbeth you could burn through a rainforest writing a response about. But in an exam, you really want to focus on quality over quantity. If you're not too keen on some of the ideas I've popped at you in this video thus far, have a look at some of the other ideas on this page where I've taken incidents and episodes and characters from the play and married them up to that key theme of deception, perception, or appearance versus reality. Finally, I'm going to hustle us through to produce a model paragraph in response to an exam question. Now, the question you see here is based on the Part B questions from the Edexcel exam spec. These have a contextual or thematic focus, and I dare say many other boards will appropriate a similar question style. The question is this: explain the importance of appearance and reality in Macbeth. You should refer to the context of the play. Beneath that in blue, I've got a little top tip. Basically, I've cribbed this from the examiner's criteria, kind of put it into plain English. This is what you need to do to impress the examiner. Write in a critical or formal style and present intelligent points and interpretations. Use appropriate references from the text to support your ideas. Also, link fluently to contextual factors. And here you can see I've taken my ideas about the porter and spun them into exam gold. In Act 2, the porter appears to be a character intended to generate humour for the audience. I've got my basic point laid out there. Notice the word appears responds to the exam question, which is about appearance versus reality. Now I'm going to back up that point or that assertion with some evidence. With the sexual innuendo about men standing to, the porter produces comic relief after the tension surrounding Duncan's death. Notice the formal or critical style there. There's not a mention of willies or penises, is there? I'm talking about sexual innuendo. Comic relief too is a technical term. And this is where we really start earning our corn, the bit in red, the explanation. However, in reality, the porter operates to foreshadow the Macbeth's fate. Imagine himself the porter of Hell's Gate. He observes a farmer who hung himself on expectation of plenty. This refers to Lady Macbeth's suicide in Act 5. Notice again how I've woven in a key term from the question, reality. It just helps keep my exam response task focused. The stuff in black is contextual detail. The message here would certainly please Shakespeare's benefactor, James I. Regicide leads to the grim death of the perpetrators. By contextual factor, of course, I mean linking the play to the era when it was written or how it's received in modern times. Notice how I now go on to develop that contextual link to secure a high mark. Regicide was a constant anxiety for James I because he narrowly avoided death during the gunpowder plot shortly before the play was written. All in all then, a sweet little paragraph that has a point in, backed up by appropriate evidence, sage interpretation of events, linking to the question, and with some added relevant contextual details stitched in on the back end. Basically, what we call in the trade a spanking dollop of loveliness, that paragraph. Don't worry, I'll spare you from my adenoidal monotone. You can read this at your leisure. It's just another model paragraph responding to that question, explaining the importance of appearance and reality in the play Macbeth. And that's us, folks. The theme of appearance versus reality picked apart like a pro. Bless your heart to the good people who've been buying my book. It's very satisfying to see it's not just my mum that's got something out of it. If you haven't done so already, you can pay up your pennies online. You won't be disappointed. Until next time, ta-ra.